Preparing for a New World. Chapter 17. It doesn't matter how long we may have been stuck in a sense of our limitations. If we go into a darkened room and turn on the light, it doesn't matter if the room has been dark for a day, a week, or 10,000 years. We turn on the light, and it is illuminated. Once we control our capacity for love and happiness, the light has been turned on. Sharon Salzberg. 1. We need more proof of who we really are. We have discussed how we prove our humanity type by the actions we decide to take while living in an imperfect world with an imperfect body. Forced to live with an imperfect human nature and to experience the vicissitudes of life that it creates, we may remain unconvinced that we would act differently than our creators would under the same circumstances. We still might claim the excuse that the motivations and consequences of our actions are directly associated with the misery and inequality of an imperfect world. We may still remain unconvinced that we would misuse the power of our free will if exposed to better human conditions. Would we act the same in a perfect world with a perfect body, where we were allowed to have unlimited use of our free will along with the ability to have sex, but where all of the basic necessities of life were provided for us without labor or charge? How do we know that if placed in better circumstances, we wouldn't feel just as comfortable being around Solarian advanced humans as we are around those of our same humanity type? There must come a time when we become convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that who we have chosen to be is indeed who we truly are, and that the restrictions placed on this humanity type are completely fair and just. We must be provided with the experience of living in a different world than the one in which we currently find ourselves. One that will finally help convince us of the truth. 2. A new world will help us to self-actualize. During the next stage of our development, the final stage before we return to becoming the perfected, advanced humans that we are, we will still have an imperfect body and retain, if we choose, the ability to enjoy sex. However, in this new world, all of our physiological and emotional needs will be provided for. With the advanced technology that will be brought to this earth, we will be able to access the energy emissions of our essence. Although our imperfect brain still won't fully allow it, through the advanced technology of advanced beings, we will come to know a lot more about our past lives. This technology will allow us to plug into our essence and transfer the experiences into images that our imperfect senses can assimilate and react to. Upon accessing more of our past experiences, we will know ourselves better and observe the choices we have made in the past. More on this later. On this new Earth, different locations will be established for the different humanity types. There will be a cultural center, or a state, or country set up, which will provide a place for Solarians to congregate and do what brings them lasting and consistent happiness. A Lunarian state and a Stellarian state will also be formed where those people of those humanity types can live freely to do what makes them happy. Everyone upon the earth will be able to freely travel to these different parts of the world and experience firsthand what it is like to live amongst humans of each humanity type. Upon so doing, we will realize where we find ourselves most comfortable living. 3. Convinced of our humanity type, we will get a corresponding perfect body. The ultimate end and purpose for this new society will be for us to finally understand who we are and why we exist, and to accept the conditions set for the humanity type that we have chosen. When we are ready to accept these things, by the choice of our own free will, we will once again receive a perfect body that will be ours forever. Before we discuss more about this new earth and society, though, in order to better understand its purpose in our development, we need to consider the state of humanity leading up to this significant change. 4. Societal problems are widespread and increasing. This book was published circa 2012. At this time, the cultures and societies that have developed upon the earth are experiencing instability and a general disposition of hopelessness. The monetary systems that control trade and commerce, which all people are dependent upon, are going through unprecedented changes in the way that they are managed and controlled to influence and stabilize society. Social problems continue to rise as more and more people find themselves questioning authority and the laws that govern their lives. The disparity between the rich and the poor is increasing, causing the value placed upon human life to decrease as the rich find little use for those who once provided the labor to support their lifestyles. 5. Technology is diminishing human value. The cause of the problems that face the human race at this time can be attributed in large part to the extraordinary advancements made in industry and technology. However, the actual technology and industry are not causing the problems. The people who control them are. Computer technology is replacing human reason. There is no longer a need for a real person to use his or her brain to solve the problems and issues facing the manufacturing and production industries. A few keyboard strokes on the right computer with the appropriate software program installed can solve most problems that were once worked out by the conscious reasoning of human beings. Human ingenuity and the use of free will and reason to acquire knowledge is becoming a relic of a past era. A correctly programmed computer is replacing the human mind in all aspects of life on planet Earth. Robotics and animation have replaced the need for labor in many of the factories that produce goods. Computers are integrated into the service sector, taking away the need for the personality and wisdom of a human being. No longer can a person call a computer's customer service department without hearing a computer-generated message first. Advancements in production and manufacturing have devalued the majority of the human race. A person no longer uses his or her unique free will to provide a product or service that others need, thereby creating a demand that will ultimately increase the value of the individual. Instead, personal ingenuity is outperformed by automation and technology of huge corporations that have the ability to offer the same products and services much more efficiently and for a much lower price. The world is slowly but progressively losing its humanity. 6. Imperfect technology ruins the environment and controls our free will. These advancements are not only devaluing the human race, but they are affecting the natural balance of the Earth's delicate environment. Whenever an interaction takes place between synthetic, artificially made to resemble something natural, products, and the natural world loses. Synthetic materials are not created by advanced humans with the knowledge to create materials that work well with the natural environment. Rather, they are created by imperfect scientists and developers who do not worry about what their creations will do to the natural world, but instead how much money can be made from them. For this reason, the earth is being polluted with synthetic products that do not break down easily and upset the delicate balance of our natural world. The advancements in science and technology are made artificially by chemical synthesis that attempt to resemble natural realities. Artificial body parts are being used to replace natural ones. Synthetic pharmaceuticals are developed in an attempt to mimic natural plants. The genes and DNA of the natural world are being manipulated and changed to meet the demands of a changing world, to such an extent that the natural world can no longer provide us with what we need to be happy. We seek for more and more technology. We depend on it. We lust after it. Consequently, we have allowed it to control our lives. 7. Those who control money restrict free will. Those in power and those who profit from these advancements in technology are the ones responsible for their use. They are responsible for what advanced technology does to other human beings and to the natural world. These are the merchants and political powers of the earth. These are those who seek power, glory, and authority over other people. These are those who control the one thing that all of us have become dependent upon for our survival: money. The abstract means of value we have allowed to be placed upon the resources of the earth and upon each other. There is not a person upon the earth who can buy or sell unless he or she utilizes the economical systems based upon money. Because all of us are dependent upon money to survive, our free will is manipulated, controlled, and restricted by those who manage money's value, exchange, and availability. 8. The human race worships money. The abstract value we place on money has increasingly become the only system by which we assess our worth. Human beings are valued by the money they have, the money they make, and the possessions that money has given them. This causes us to continually expend most of our energy in using money, or in thinking about how much we have or do not have, and how we can get more. We are tormented day and night by our experiences with the abundance of money or the lack thereof. Money has left its mark upon us. The image of success and the values it has created in our minds pollute our true humanity and cause us to disregard the emotional balance that we call happiness. It has definitely left its mark upon us. The very number we have ascribed to the value of money has created the economic system, the likes of which the world has never known before. This economic value system we have created can be likened to a quote-unquote great beast of burden, upon whose back the inhabitants of the earth ride, having a cup of wine in one hand, being drunk with the material things of the world. But the people of the world do not see where this great beast is taking them, nor do they care. As long as they are enjoying the ride and are drunk with pleasure, or are attempting to get drunk, Why should they worry about it? 9. We have sold our humanity for money. We are not being true and faithful to our humanity. Our essence contains our humanity and was established in us before we were placed in this world. Our humanity is being pushed further and further back into our subconscious mind, where we pay less and less attention to it. The worries and cares of the world and the aspirations of becoming as the world expects us have clouded our minds. The energy needed to keep a proper balance between the energy levels of our perfect essence and our imperfect brain, which is responsible for our conscious thoughts, is being wasted. The energy is wasted on our constant craving for worldliness. A sign of our humanity is a constant desire for the welfare of others. A token of our humanity is our willingness to do whatever is necessary to live in peace and harmony with others. The sign and token, the essence of our humanity, were given to us by our mothers, who were responsible for ensuring that our humanity was foundationalized correctly. And it was. We just can't remember that it was. Because we can't remember, we sell our sign and token for money. Our politicians have sold their humanity for glory, power, and personal gain. The bureaucrats who support them have sold their humanity in exchange for a title and a government pay grade that is reflected in their paycheck. Unethical and corrupt behavior is justified because of the attitude that it's my job. Soldiers kill because it is, quote unquote, their job, and they have sold the sign and token of their humanity for the pay and accolades they receive from their commanding officers. Police officers, prosecuting attorneys, judges, and correctional administrators have sold their sign and token for money. They are blind to the social problems caused by their actions and justify what they do by exclaiming, quote, I'm just doing my job, unquote. Salespeople, not only of material goods, but also of emotional goods and services, justify their abuse of humanity because it is, quote unquote, their job. It is how they earn their money and how they are paid, not just monetarily. Throughout the world, people justify acting against what they know to be right because it is, quote unquote, their job to do it. They justify their lack of humanity, exclaiming, quote, someone has to do it. If I don't, someone else will. So why shouldn't I get the money? Unquote. No longer is it part of humanity to treat others how one would want to be treated. This antiquated rule of humanity has been replaced with do unto others as they do unto you, or before they do it unto you. 10. Leaders fail to use power to benefit others. The leaders of our world who seek and maintain power over others have been given the chance to prove to themselves what they will do with such power. They have the power to utilize their humanity in a way that benefits the rest of us without upsetting the delicate natural balance of our world, and at the same time provide for the needs of all people equally. In these current times, the United States of America, for example, has the ability to feed the entire world through the technological advancements and the economic systems that it controls. It has the power to provide clean, sound shelter to all inhabitants of the world. It has the power to provide everyone with the best in healthcare. It has the power to do many things for the good of all humanity. But it does not. Instead, it sells its sign and its token of humanity, or better, places a higher priority on money than on people. The people of the United States have placed themselves and their own importance above all others of the world. Being a quote unquote American means more to them than what quote unquote being an American is doing to the rest of the world. The quote unquote American dream and its dependence on money and consumerism stand in the way of utilizing the great technological advancements of today and the many that will be coming in the near future to solve the whole of humanity's problems. 11. We have the ability to provide for all equally. The leaders of the United States of America have no excuse why they cannot use their power for the benefit of all Americans equally, or even for the entire world. Until now, not at any time during the history of the human race upon this planet has humankind had the ability and technology to produce the products and services that would increase our state of contentment. The ability to do this was reserved for the latter days of the second stage of our development upon this earth without the intervention of more advanced human societies. As discussed previously, our creators purposefully ensured that the technologies and advancements we are experiencing today were not discovered in the past because they knew what imperfect human nature would do with these technologies. They knew that once the mortal human race was allowed to discover what they have today, they would be able to destroy themselves and the planet upon which they live. One would reason that over time, we would learn how to be more humane and use our free agency to create peace upon earth. But since the beginning of history, nothing has changed. We are still treating each other in inhumane ways despite our advancements in technology. We are learning that no matter how much power we are allowed to have, most of us will never use it correctly for the benefit of all people equally. 12. Those who crave power demonstrate how they misuse it. The reason why our creators are allowing such advancements today is to take away the excuse of those who wield the power and domination of these advancements. Again, another very important purpose for this imperfect world is to show us that few free-willed human beings can be trusted with the power of an advanced creator, something we all desired in the beginning. If we were never given the power and ability to do what is for the good of humanity, how could it be proven that we would misuse this power? Because those who are in power upon this earth now have the ability, through advanced technologies, to improve the state of humanity. If they do not use their power to do so, they will have proven to themselves and to the rest of us that they cannot be trusted with this power. Subsequently, these Stellarians and Lunarians will have proven to themselves what their advanced, perfect mothers tried to tell them all along during their foundationalization process. You cannot be trusted with this type of power. Many of us might have argued the point then, but we will have no argument after experiencing what we did with the power during our second stage of development in mortality. 13. We are seeing the unhappiness our sexual natures cause us. The other point of contention we had with our primordial parents was concerning the issue of sex. We wondered, why can't we all have the power and ability associated with sex? During these current times upon this earth, we are allowed to exercise our sexual desires unlike at any other time in our history. Sex is no longer taboo. It is a natural and perfectly rational use of our bodies. It has become very enjoyable, especially in light of the fact that the act no longer has to end in producing a child. The means of contraception will increase and advance like everything else in our world. The moral value that has inhibited sex is decreasing, as it should, so that all of us can freely exercise our ability to experience the amazing power and sensory fulfillment of sex. Humans were created to experience joy from utilizing the senses of our body. As we have discussed in this book, our body has specific organs that support our senses and allow us the ability to experience joy thereby. We have also discussed how our sex organs provide us with an additional way that we can utilize all of these senses at once. There is no justifiable reason why any imperfect human should not be allowed to use all of their senses as their creation intended at any time they choose. However, in so doing, protection of individual free will must be strictly enforced. No one is justified in enjoying the sensory fulfillment of their sex organs with another person who is not capable of choosing for themselves whether or not they wish to participate in the act of sharing the sexual experience. This includes, but is not limited to, young children, the mentally disabled, and those who are raped or forced beyond their will to resist. Bestiality is also a direct violation, not of free will, because animals don't have any, but of the rules our creators have established for all living creatures in how their bodies react sexually within each individual species. Rules and laws encompassing morality must be respected and maintained, but limited only in the prohibition of impeding the free will of another. Any form of sexual behavior that does not take away the free will of another should be protected and supported as a personal choice of action. A person should not be judged in any way based on his or her sexual orientation or persuasion. We all have the right to enjoy the mortal bodies we have been given, and we should all protect each other's right to do so as we each choose individually. Through this liberation of our sexual abilities, we are learning about the problems that sex can cause to our emotional balance. As sexual abilities become more individualized and liberated, we are learning to dissociate the act of sex from our deep personal emotions. The act seems to be no different from eating or satisfying the rest of our bodily senses. Yet, no matter what it quote-unquote seems, we are still affected emotionally by sexual experiences. When acted upon with free will, the sexual act causes nothing but happiness, albeit temporary, while it is being experienced. Even so, the reality still exists that one day, only those who choose to perpetuate the human race will be able to experience sex with their perfect bodies. The rest of our perfected bodies will not have the organs to do so. And without the organs, we will not be able to relive any sexual experiences. Those sexual experiences of the past will be as useless to our enjoyment then as they are to little children who observe sexual activities of mortal adults. They are of no concern to the child whatsoever. The reality of losing the ability to have sex will always be something that we will never completely understand, and it will never make sense to us. Nevertheless, it is the way things have always been and will continue to be throughout the universe. And through our experiences upon this earth, we will be given the opportunity to concede this and accept that it must be. 14. Unhappiness is the consequence of our lack of humanity towards ourselves and each other. Unhappiness is the effect of continually disregarding the power of our human essence. Misery is the natural, physical byproduct of producing energy levels through our actions that oppose those given off by our essence. Unhappiness and misery are caused from the inhumane things we do to ourselves and to each other, including the things that we don't do for others. As discussed throughout this book, the cause of our misery is that we cannot readily recall who we really are and are left to ourselves upon this earth without the intervention of those who helped us establish our humanity in the first place. It had to be this way so that we could experience misery, and the purpose of this second stage of our development has been overwhelmingly successful. 15. We were not created to always be unhappy. Even so, we were not created to live in a continual misery and without the hope for happiness and lasting peace. What a cruel and unfair proposition to suppose that advanced humans gave us life and free will that made us conscious of ourself, only to let us continually exist in unhappiness. What sadistic person would do such a thing? Why would they create us in a perfect human world with all we need to exercise our free agency to do anything we desire, only to have us meet an end of our existence in a world full of human suffering, misery, and hopelessness? Would any of us create a child knowing that we were introducing the child into a life that ended in death, non-existence, and that until the child meets that end, it is going to suffer through all sorts of miserable circumstances? If we could not imagine ourselves doing this, how could it be possible for anyone to suppose that advanced human beings could do it? 16. A perfect world makes us fully responsible for our actions. Our imperfect world must be transformed into a perfect one, where we will no longer be able to blame our actions on our environment. We need the opportunity to continue to exercise our free will and have complete power over our environment instead of the environment controlling us. We need this experience so that we can better understand who we have chosen to be. As mentioned previously, only in a perfect world can free-willed people be completely responsible for their actions. Therefore, to allow us this experience, we need to exist in a perfect world with an imperfect body. Only then can the excuses we might come up with for our actions be exposed and eliminated. 17. Why is the real truth being revealed now? We have discussed why it is necessary that true reality be kept from us during our probationary period upon this earth. We have explained why we cannot have full access to the memories of our past lives and a great deal of our present life. So, if this is the purpose for mortality, then why are these real truths being revealed in this book at this time? Better yet, how is true reality being revealed to us? Who is this author? How do we know that the author hasn't made everything up that is written in this book just for the author's own personal gain? Who gave the author the knowledge and authority to do these things? 18. Knowing the real truth eliminates all excuses. This book, a true explanation of human reality, is being published circa the year 2012 for one reason: to eliminate further excuse that many will have as to why they should not be allowed the powers and abilities of Solarian humans. Before the publication of this book, a person could have easily complained to our creators that mortality wasn't a fair test. Some might have claimed, "You didn't want us to know true reality so that we would experience the opposition of happiness. You set us up to fail. We understand that you did not openly intervene into our lives so that we could prove to ourselves what we would do if we didn't think anyone was watching us. But why didn't you give us the real truth and still allow us to exist in a state where we didn't think anyone was watching over us? We might not have failed if we had only known the real truth." As we will discuss later, this excuse will be eliminated when we are allowed to live in a new world, patterned after the perfect world where we were foundationalized, yet still have all the powers, abilities, and probative experience that we are allowed with our imperfect body. 19. The year 2012 is an important time period. There is a set time given to this earth when our creators will reveal themselves to the world. That time is about 135 years, plus or minus a few years, from the time that this book is published. We know this because the advanced beings who oversee this solar system have explained this time period to those quote-unquote selected ones who were given all the answers to human reality and provided them to us so that a full understanding of real truth could benefit us all. There have been some interesting theories and beliefs associated with the year 2012. Some believe it will be the end of the world as we know it. Others believe it will be the beginning of a new world, a better world. All of these speculations were invented in the minds of some people who were able to tap into the power of their essence and attempt to formulate an explanation of what they felt. As discussed previously, they have created their own personal reality, which is no different from their dreams. None of these theories is correct. 20. There is universal opportunity to know the real truth. Every human essence assigned to this solar system will have the opportunity to live in mortality during the time that the fullness of true reality is available to the entire world equally. There are roughly 15 billion people assigned to this solar system. A typical lifespan for a human being now upon this earth is approximately 72 years. Therefore, it is reasonable that during 2 generations, about 144 years of human beings numbering 7.5 billion in population, the entire 15 billion of us will have an opportunity to live upon the earth when the real truth is available, without a sure knowledge that other advanced humans exist in other parts of the universe. None of us will ever have the excuse that we were not given the chance to prove our humanity type during a time that the fullness of real truth was upon the earth, during a time when we were free to act with our free will without knowing that we were being watched over by other advanced human beings. Remember, if we really knew we were being observed, our free will would be impeded, and we would never act true to our humanity type. However, and this is very, very important to keep in mind, although real truth is being made available to all of us, this does not take away the free agency of a person to reject it, or to not even search for it. 21. Many people will reject the real truth because of pride. This book contains the presentation of true reality. It will be published and made available to everyone upon the earth. With the current technology of the internet and the advanced technology of worldwide communication that is coming in the near future, every human being will have access to the real truths presented in this book for the very first time in human history. Again, although this book will be made available to everyone equally, this does not mean that it will be accepted by everyone equally, because it points out the fallibility of every idea, every concept, every perception, and every thought produced by imperfect human minds in an imperfect world. Many will be offended at its revelations. Many will scoff at the idea that they know nothing of real truth. They will find it very hard to accept that all they have believed and learned throughout their life is a false or misleading representation of perfect human reality. Yes, personal pride and egocentricity, the very things that were instilled in our essences during our primordial foundationalization, will keep many from even reading this book. Many who believe they already have the truth will not be searching for anything. Therefore, by their choice, they will never discover this book. Nevertheless, this book will still be made available for all equally. This is so that none will ever have an excuse for why they did not find it and allow it to affect their free-willed choices. 22. We will have no excuse for rejecting the truth. None of us will have the excuse that the real truth was not made available to us during our probative state, when we were left to ourselves without advanced human intervention. At the end of our second stage of human development in an imperfect body, we will be able to look back over our past lives, one of which, for the majority of us, is guaranteed to include the years between 2012 and 2145, or thereabouts. We will observe what we did during each of our lifetimes and will be left with no excuse or justification for any of our actions. None whatsoever. 23. One mortal human is given a full understanding of all things. As explained previously, advanced humans have intervened at times during our probative state to ensure equality and fairness to all. Sometimes they decide upon a person to whom they reveal their true identity as a human being, although advanced, and teach this individual true reality. The way this is completed is very simple. As explained, all of us have a complete universal knowledge of all things recorded in our essence. Our imperfect physical brain, quote unquote, veils this knowledge, or rather prohibits us from accessing it. An advanced being has the ability to create a pathway through this quote unquote veil, which more fully connects one's imperfect brain to one's essence. With this actual physical connection, this one individual then has the capability to access memories and understanding stored on their essence. With this unique ability, the individual can then carry out the purpose for which he or she was given the capability. This is how, and is the only way, an imperfect mortal person gains an understanding of the mysteries of human existence, even as complete an understanding of all things as any advanced human being found anywhere in the universe has. 24. The one selected will only use a knowledge of real truth to benefit everyone equally. We now know how the knowledge of true reality is given. But the more important question might be how the advanced beings decide upon a person to whom to give this power. In addition, how can the rest of us know of a surety that this person has actually been properly selected and is not just creating a personal reality for him or herself, as do those who claim quote-unquote psychic or quote-unquote spiritual powers as discussed previously? The answer lies in the understanding that this knowledge will only be given to a person with a Solarian essence. This person will never use that power for gain, either monetarily or to gain the respect of others. A person belonging to this humanity type will never allow a group of people to follow him or her or set up a groupthink mentality, wherein those who believe in the quote-unquote selected one isolate and separate themselves from the rest of society. Everything these quote-unquote selected ones do will benefit the entire population of the world equally. These will never claim to know, nor will they ever reveal any information about another person in mortality that they would not reveal about everyone else, unless, upon doing so, everyone else in the world benefits thereby. They will never use their understanding of true reality unless it serves the purposes of serving the whole world equally. 25. Those selected receive their commission from an advanced being face to face. These quote-unquote selected ones will never claim that they receive information about how they should use their new ability, their purpose, from any outside source that they cannot see with their physical eyes and hear with their physical ears. This quote-unquote outside source must be in human form and be recognizable as any other human being. It cannot, nor will it ever be, an ethereal manifestation of any kind. The source must be an actual, physical, advanced human being. Advanced human beings have bodies of flesh and bone. Nothing else. The reason why it is important for a person to receive proper instruction face to face with an actual human being is because of the ability of the imperfect brain to deceive a mortal, as explained previously in this book. Thoughts can be created by our imperfect mind, speaking face to face with an advanced human being who communicates in the familiar way that humans are accustomed to receiving information, i.e., from the mouth to the ear, ensures the ones quote unquote selected that they are not making things up in their own mind. There can be no misunderstanding when a directive is given from the voice box of an advanced being to the ears of a mortal quote unquote selected one. In summary of this important concept concerning those who are quote unquote selected to know real truth, a quote unquote selected one must actually be visited by an advanced human being from another galaxy or solar system. The advanced being must physically make adjustments to the quote unquote selected one's brain to allow access to the essence. Quote unquote selected ones will only be mandated to do something that will affect all the people of the world equally without impeding anyone's free will. Along with the commission comes the ability to confound anything that is not real truth or that does not make sense to a normal person. The quote-unquote selected one can answer any question about human reality. If all of these criteria are not met, then the person who makes any claim to quote-unquote special insight or understanding coming from a quote-unquote higher source other than themselves is making up a personal reality in their own head through their imagination. 26. Those selected can answer any question about the true meaning of life. The greatest determining factor of whether or not an individual was truly selected to do a specific work for a particular purpose is whether or not they can explain all of the mysteries of life. Can they answer any and all questions about who we are and why we exist? Although their answers might often be rejected by the world, do their answers make perfect sense to the average human intellect? Most importantly, does everything they teach as true reality or real truth negate everything known, believed, opined, reasoned, and set forth in an imperfect world? Keep in mind that what we have come up with in our imperfect world is far from true human reality. Does what they teach help us create a better world for all and give one a comfortable feeling that what they teach is fair and equitable to all? This is creating a balance with what we already know but can't remember that is stored in our essence. Does what they teach us help us better understand who we are and why we exist? 27. Most do not like what selected ones teach. The imperfect world as a whole has a hard time accepting the true quote-unquote selected ones because what they reveal usually negates all previously learned quote-unquote knowledge. These quote-unquote selected ones are hated, ridiculed, blasphemed, and receive very little accolade or praise, something they could care less about anyway, from the majority of the people of the world. Whenever one of these individuals has existed among the human race, they have usually been killed by those whose self-image and value were threatened by their message and knowledge. Their deaths have usually been caused by those who are threatened by the real truth. These include the leaders, politicians, judges, psychics, and channelers, and all others who have convinced themselves and others that they have special powers that place them in a position of power or authority over others. And because the majority of the people in an imperfect world receive their own personal value from one of these leaders, etc., the people are going to follow the suggestion given by their leaders. Their leaders will convince them that anyone claiming to have the extraordinary power of being able to explain real truth that disagrees or contradicts their truth must be eliminated. 28. The placement of selected ones coincides with the consequences of human nature. These quote-unquote selected ones are chosen at certain time periods throughout the history of the human race upon this earth, although there have been times when no mortal was selected to reveal any portion of real truth anywhere upon the earth. Quote-unquote selected ones come and go as the advanced beings who monitor our world see fit. The quote-unquote chosen individual's presence among us usually coincides with some transitional period of our second stage of development. These quote-unquote transitional stages are determined by what we do with our free will. 29. We go through 7 transitional stages in our imperfect bodies. In general, there are 7 quote-unquote transitional stages that we go through during mortality. These should not be confused with the 3 main stages of human development. These 7 quote-unquote transitional stages only occur during mortality, the second stage of human development. Generally, as has occurred during this Earth's mortal existence. Stage 1. Our imperfect bodies were created and given to us. These bodies gave us the power to reproduce at will. We were taught the primary rules of humanity and were sent forth into the world to use its resources to support our imperfect bodies. We were given the power to act and be acted upon according to the natural laws of the earth. Stage 2. Because we weren't taught to write, our first ancestors had no way to pass on the information about how to treat each other. These quote-unquote primary rules of humanity. We soon learned that we not only had power and dominion over the natural world, because of our advanced intellect in comparison to the rest of the animals found upon the earth, but we also had power over each other, the strong over the weak. Thus, during stage 2, the first homicides in the form of warfare occurred in protection of a person's belief system and the limited resources of the earth. Stage 3. During this stage, and because of the increasing means of warfare used for self-protection, we learned that the resources of the earth were not unlimited and needed to be controlled. We began to place abstract values on the things of the earth and upon each other. It was during this stage that the concept of quote-unquote money began to affect our humanity. Stage 4. During the 4th stage, we learned to organize ourselves into civilizations, nations, and communities that supported what we learned and experienced in the first 3 stages. We learned to use our free will to support ourselves and our families, protect them through warfare, and gain more abundance than others. We justified this ostensibly because our abundance favored our chosen groups, families, communities, and nations, and ourselves. Stage 5. Some people who were protected within the separate and isolated borders of civilized nations had the ability and great privilege to do nothing more than think all day long. This stage produced what the imperfect mind would relate to as the renaissance of human thought. It gave some the ability to refine their methods of trying to figure out what this life was all about. No human being who is forced to hard and continuous labor to support their life can focus their energy on considering who we are and why we exist. This can only happen when one can free up their energy and allow the energy of the essence to affect their thoughts. From this stage came quote-unquote great philosophers, orators, writers, and others. None of these came from a life situation where they didn't have enough time to utilize human reason and imagination to contemplate human reality. These were soon honored and respected, and often envied for their easy lifestyle. With this honor and respect, they began to take away the free will of the human mind and replace it with invented realities of imperfection coming from their own minds. They had nothing better to do in life but sit around and create value for themselves. Quote unquote, taking away free will, in the sense mentioned above, indicates that what people were being taught and what they readily began to accept gave them less of a chance to understand true reality on their own. The institutions of education, colleges, universities, and places where one pursued worldly honor and respect through diplomas and awards began to take place of true reason and true humanity. In these institutions of learning, the imperfect understanding invented in the minds of those who the world chose to accept as quote-unquote wise ones was continuously recycled, reinvented, and circulated in the human mind until the invented, vain, and foolish imaginations of imperfect humans seem to be, and still are, the only accepted reality. Stage 6. This is the stage of technological and industrial invention. It was during this transitional stage that our creators finally allowed us to act upon our imperfect reason and thought processes to produce whatever we could come up with on our own. During the previous transitional stages, this ability was monitored and hindered, as explained previously, to prevent the introduction of too much technology on Earth that would have contributed to the premature end of the human race. Had the advanced monitors not intervened in deterring the thoughts of our ancestors, those before us would have discovered electricity and the technology we are experiencing today in their own time. As explained, if this had been allowed to happen, the human race would have destroyed itself a long time ago. Stage 7. We are near the beginning of this transitional stage. At the beginning of this stage, we will make the transition from being imperfect humans in an imperfect world to imperfect humans in a perfect world. We will then experience what it is like to live as imperfect humans in a perfect world. This stage will be ushered in by our own free will and choice to make our world a better place for all humans to live equally, or it will be ushered in against our free will by the advanced human beings who oversee this solar system. As mentioned, to give us the opportunity to do this ourselves without their intervention, we are being given a complete understanding of true reality through this book. In the next chapter, an exact plan that will work for us without hindering anyone's free agency will be presented. By following this plan, we have the potential to unite the world and establish a foundation of humanity that we have never been able to accomplish before. It would be the first step in changing our world from what it currently is into a new world. 30. Quote-unquote selected ones give us the chance to understand how our actions affect us. Except for stage 1, before each quote-unquote transitional stage occurred, one mortal individual was selected and assigned to do a particular work that would equally benefit the entire human race, according to each particular culture to which the quote-unquote selected one was sent. The quote-unquote benefit gives the people of the earth the opportunity to prepare themselves for each stage. If these quote-unquote selected ones had not been placed appropriately, then mortals would have had an excuse as to why they acted the way that they did. For example, someone was selected to warn us about the genocide that would occur if we started exercising dominion over other human beings. Stage 2. Someone was there to warn us about the inequality and poverty that was going to occur if we started placing abstract values on the things of the world and each other. Stage 3. Someone was there to warn us what would happen if we isolated ourselves into families, communities, states, and nations, and put up imaginary borders, walls, and fences to protect our selfish interests. Stage 4. Someone was there to warn us about creating our own personal realities and then forcing others through mental manipulation, through the written word and specialized oratory skills, to accept these untrue realities as real truth. Stage 5. Someone was there to warn us about what would happen when we began to develop industry and technology. Stage 6. And finally, someone, the author of this book, was chosen to warn us about what was about to happen to our world because we didn't listen to those who preceded him or her in preparation for transforming our world into a perfect one. Stage 7. Always keep in mind that every intercession upon this earth by our creators has to do with leaving each individual with no excuse. Because of these warnings given during the time away from the influence and control of advanced human beings, individuals will have no excuse for why they used their free agency the way that they did. 31. The number of those selected to warn humanity varies during different time periods. Because there were no worldwide communication connections throughout the earth during the first 6 transitional stages, there was more than just one selected for each transitional period. There was usually one for every culture that existed on earth, but in each culture there was always only one. From these selected ones, teachings of real truth, of what they were allowed to reveal at the time, came many of the mythologies, legends, and traditional belief systems that we have today, most of which inhibit free will and our ability to know the real truths that were actually taught by them. We currently have the capability of having information provided to all parts of the world equally. Because of this, there is only one who needed to be assigned to be a quote-unquote voice of warning to the people of the world at this time. In preparation for the 7th and last transitional stage of human development upon this earth, and with modern technology and its continued development, the message of this one will be made available to all people in all parts of the earth. This final message will supersede, transcend, and encompass all other teachings of real truth given before it. It will reveal all things to the human race that have been hidden from them since the foundation of this world. It will truly become a marvelous work and a wonder for the inhabitants of this earth. 32. The Egyptian and Mayan cultures left evidence. Our creators allowed some tidbits of empirical evidence to be established to help prove the truth of what has just been revealed in this book, i.e., concerning advanced beings' interaction with the human race upon this earth. Some of these evidences came from the ancient Egyptian and Mayan cultures. A quote-unquote selected one lived among the people of the ancient Egyptian, Eastern Hemisphere, civilization at the beginning of the second transitional stage and at the beginning of the fourth transitional stage. A quote-unquote selected one lived among the Mayan, Western Hemisphere civilization. These particular quote-unquote selected ones not only taught the primary rules of humanity, but also gave these people some ideas and perspectives of science and technology that exist in a perfect world. These cultures of people gleaned knowledge of advanced civilizations from the quote-unquote selected ones sent among them. With the tidbits of information they received, the people developed ancient technologies that baffle modern-day anthropologists and other respected intellectuals who make an attempt to understand where these ancient people received their knowledge. 33. The Egyptians had a recipe for cement. For example, the Egyptians came up with a recipe for an advanced type, for that time, of cement, which they used to create the blocks from which they formed their great pyramids. These pyramids were constructed by using a prefabricated block form into which was poured this quote-unquote special cement mixture. The prefabricated form was very lightweight and allowed the Egyptians and all of those who knew of the cement quote-unquote recipe to make one layer of blocks, then carry the form up to the next higher level. The form was put into place on the next level, and then the laborers mixed the cement and transported it with buckets to construct the next level of the pyramid. Once hardened, the mixture resembled a solid block that rivals any man-made cement of today. The overall shape of the pyramid points toward space, where the ancient people were taught that advanced human beings lived. Because the Egyptians revered their leaders as quote-unquote advanced humans who were chosen to lead them, the pyramids were constructed as their tombs and pointed towards the direction where the people believed their leaders went when they died. Current scientists, archaeologists, and geologists, and all others who have placed a title next to their name to create personal value from their research are puzzled as to how the Great Pyramids were made in the middle of the desert. They are baffled because they do not know the quote-unquote recipe. All they need to do is ask a quote-unquote selected one. The one selected would then decide if revealing the quote-unquote secret recipe would benefit the entire human race or not. 34. Why the Mayan calendar ends in the year 2012. The ancient Mayan culture also built pyramids like the Egyptians. However, The most puzzling thing about this Western hemispheric culture is that the Mayan calendar ends at the year 2012. The reason it ends at this year has also mystified the intellectuals of modern times. Only one selected to have this knowledge, however, would know why this is. The Mayans were taught about the 7 transitional stages of human development. The one who was selected to teach them the specifics of each part of these stages of development was among them when Mayan leaders established their own calendar of time. The Mayans were taught that the end of ignorance concerning true reality was set for what would calculate out to be the year 2012, according to modern calendars. They were taught that all things would be restored to the people of the earth by the time this year took place on earth. The Mayans erroneously assumed that if all things would be restored at that time, i.e., if all real truth was to be explained to the people of the world, then the advanced beings who knew these things would also come. They assumed that the world as they knew it, in all its imperfection and misery, would end once the true reality, or the real truth, was available to the people of the world. At that point, they figured there would be no need to keep track of time, especially when the calculation and management of time was only needed in an imperfect world. They got one thing right. The real truth will be available to all the people of the world by 2012. That is the purpose of this book. But the thing they didn't fully understand was what the people of the world would do once they received the real truth. It was their hope that everyone would rejoice once the advanced human beings finally gave us the definitive answers to the questions of who we are and why we exist. The Mayan people did not realize what state the imperfect human mind would be in their future. They knew nothing of the pride, arrogance, and stubbornness that are associated with egocentric human beings who do not consider true reality and who have fallen so far from it. The ancient Mayans could not have imagined that, although the real truth would be available to human beings, the majority would have a very hard time accepting truths that counter everything they have believed since birth, even that which has influenced their parents and their ancestors from the beginning of this imperfect world. They would have never imagined that the majority of the world would likely reject the real truth, opting instead to continue to accept the imperfect reality to which they had become accustomed. 35. There is no complete or real truth in any ancient text. The ones selected to warn humanity left tidbits of real truth with the people to whom they were sent. These quote-unquote tidbits were not a full disclosure of what the quote-unquote selected ones taught, but what the people retained of their teachings. Because the selected ones were instructed to not leave any written evidence of what they taught, the quote-unquote tidbits the people retained were often misinterpreted and changed. Most selected ones were eventually killed by the political and spiritual leaders who were losing their personal value and influence among the people who were listening to the selected ones. Although most of what the selected ones taught became corrupted, some of the truths they left behind can be found in distorted semblance in the mythology and belief systems passed down through subsequent generations of the many ancient cultures of the world. No true, quote-unquote, selected one would leave anything in writing unless instructed face-to-face to do so in order to counter the published writings of false teachers who deceived the people into believing that they were, quote unquote, selected when they were not. As discussed previously, the worldly leaders could have changed their words to reflect what they, the leaders, wanted their followers to believe. Because no verifiable writings were left, what the quote-unquote selected ones actually taught was transformed into disjointed fragments of real truth mixed in with the vain and foolish imaginations of the leaders. From these imaginative realities came forth many written manuscripts that are currently accepted throughout the world as quote-unquote truth. Billions of people believe in ancient documents written by those whom they believe were actually quote-unquote selected ones. However, no ancient document or manuscript meets the criteria of what would have been written by a true quote-unquote selected one as outlined above. No ancient document supports the unconditional right of free will and presents counsel that supports this right. In other words, none gives a perfect outline of how humans should treat each other. No ancient written document appropriately and concisely solves the human dilemma. Who am I? And why do I exist? Therefore, any and all ancient texts are nothing more than the disjointed fragments of real truth mixed in with the vain and foolish imagination of imperfect human understanding. 36. A new world will either come by way of us or by our Creator's intervention. One day, the world as we currently know it will change drastically. This change will not come from the cataclysmic events of destruction, often portended by those with vain and foolish imaginations who don't know true reality. It's not that any part of human imagination is foolish, but only that those who make a claim that their imagination is true reality when it is not become fools. Our world will also not change because some unknown quote-unquote alien creatures come to the earth to destroy it and take us captive. It will change because of one of two reasons. First, the drastic change could come when we collectively finally accept the true reality that each individual is equally responsible for all of the problems facing humanity. And in this acknowledgement, do all we can to eliminate these problems. Second, if not by us, then the advanced human beings who placed us here and who are responsible for this solar system will come to Earth, reveal themselves to the whole of humankind, and make the necessary changes themselves. Although certainly not impossible, the probability of the former happening, based on our past actions, is highly unlikely, but still possible and desirable. The latter is the more probable and will be the solution if somehow we cannot unite and accomplish it ourselves. 37. The prepared overseer had to be proven. We have discussed the necessity of a quote-unquote overseer who was foundationalized differently from the rest of us so that he could fairly and equitably quote-unquote oversee our solar system. We have discussed how it was important for us to learn to trust this quote-unquote overseer so that we would be able to accept him as the ultimate and perfect dictator of the universal laws that have always governed perfect human societies. But how could we trust such a person to rule over our free will if that person's own power and free will had not been tested like our own? In other words, how would we know that this quote unquote overseer was foundationalized correctly so that he wouldn't misuse his power and knowledge and make mistakes in governing us? To prove himself to us, he was sent to the earth to experience mortality just like the rest of us, at the exact meridian of the 7 transitional stages of human development. His essence was placed in an imperfect body during the middle of the 4th transitional stage, when the first of the greatest human civilizations was established upon the earth. This great empire covered 1/4 of the known world and had more power and authority over humankind than any other before it or any other after it, until the formation of the United States of America. This was the Great Roman Empire. 38. Our overseer was tested just like us. All of the essential circumstances needed to test our quote-unquote overseer were present during the time of this great empire. It had to be proven whether or not he would misuse his power and abilities to treat any of us with inequality, no matter how we misused our humanity. The Roman culture was flourishing with money, prestige, education, families, communities, and every other idea that the imperfect human race had produced and valued. How would this quote-unquote overseer use his free agency during this time period? If his own life was threatened by another, would he use his power to destroy his enemy? Would he judge another for the lifestyle that person chose to live? Would he do anything unbecoming of a perfect overseer whom we all would need and who we could respect and accept as our supreme head? Although the few ancient manuscripts written about this person cannot be trusted as the quote-unquote real truth concerning his life upon this earth, this person did indeed exist. He had to. There was no other way for us to truly know if he could be trusted above all others unless he went through the same probative experience as those for whom he was created and foundationalized to be responsible and oversee. 39. Our overseer promised to one day transform our world. This quote-unquote overseer taught the same things that the quote-unquote selected ones sent into the world before him taught, and the same things the quote-unquote selected ones who were sent after him taught. Of course, he was killed by those whose personal value and public clout were threatened by his teachings and way of life. Before he was killed, however, he told those close to him that one day he would return to the earth, but at that time with a perfect body. His body would have all the power of the advanced creators who created him, plus abilities to do things that not even our creators can do. When the time was right, he promised that he would come to the world again and usher in the beginning of a new world, patterned after the one where we lived previously, even a perfect world. 40. Advanced humans will come to the earth when we need them. The quote-unquote right time for the quote-unquote overseer to come is when we have exhausted all of our energy trying to create a perfect world through imperfect means, or we simply refuse to try. He and many other advanced human beings from the solar system, where we were first created, will come to this earth when the human race is on the brink of destroying itself, and the whole of the natural world, unless humankind turns itself around, contrary to what might be expected based on its past inhumanity. Unless we discover our humanity for ourselves, they will come when we have learned that few of us are capable of being trusted with power and authority over anyone else but ourselves. They will come at a time when the whole world is wondering, what is all this about? Who are we? Why do we exist? Why can't we seem to do anything right on this earth to create peace and happiness among us? When we have figured out just how imperfect our ways are and are humble enough to realize that we need help, they will come and save us from ourselves. 41. Advanced beings will transform our world into a perfect one. Advanced humans will bring with them the advanced technology that is needed to repair the destruction that we have caused to our natural world. They will come with technology that overrides and nullifies all the so-called, quote-unquote, advanced technologies we have invented in our imperfect world. They will completely shut down and destroy any weapon of destruction that can take a human life. No weapon will work, no gun or missile will fire, and nothing will operate if its purpose is to harm a human life. They will introduce the means to produce food, clothing, shelter, and all the basic necessities of life without harming the natural environment and without charging a price for them. They will eliminate poverty by providing everything a person desires for their individual happiness without charge. They will eliminate inequality by explaining that in a perfect human world, all people are equal, regardless of what they choose to do with their free agency, as long as what they do does not affect the free agency of another. In essence, pun intended, they will reiterate everything written in this book. 42. Free agency will remain unimpeded. These advanced humans are going to do all of the above activities without infringing upon our free agency, except for making all weapons of war and anything else that will harm a human being useless and obsolete. They will not allow any human being to kill another human being. However, they are not going to interfere in the cultures and belief systems of the world. If a person wants to continue to believe any particular way, they will not prohibit a person from doing so. They will, however, teach the real truth to those who are willing to listen to what they have to say about the perfect worlds that exist in other parts of the universe, the worlds that they came from, that we came from. 43. The real truth will extinguish human pride. Those coming to Earth will not impede our free will to think as we want to think and to believe as we want to believe. We will not need to accept their ways just because they say that their ways are better than our own. Nevertheless, because of the way they will come to the Earth, many will want to hear what they have to say. The quote-unquote overseer assigned to this solar system will be their spokesman. What comes out of his mouth will be like a quote-unquote sharp two-edged sword. In other words, the things he will say will be taken one of two ways. Thus the use of the metaphorical two-edged sword. A person will either rejoice in what he says, or else one's pride, ego, or self-value will be cut asunder and cause that person misery, weeping, and a constant state of frustration. 44. The merchants and their wares, along with all money, will lose their value. The merchants of the earth are going to wince in turmoil because everything that they sell to make a profit will be of no worth. Although they can continue to attempt to sell their wares on the open market for money, who in their right mind is going to pay for the merchant's inferior products when far more superior advanced products provided by the newly arrived advanced beings are available for free? Money will eventually become obsolete. The advanced human beings will, quote unquote, set up shop and produce the wares that exist in the most advanced human worlds free of charge. A merchant may want the antitrust and anti-monopoly laws enforced so that their products do not lose their value to unfair competition. But there will be no sheriff to deliver a summons and complaint. All military and police and any other legal enforcement means, their weapons, used to control commerce will be useless against these advanced beings. When confronted with the rule of law created by imperfect people in an imperfect world, these advanced beings will respond. Quote, "This earth is a part of the universe. The universal rule of law supersedes any law you have created upon this earth. Your judges, your lawyers, and your officers of the court and law have no jurisdiction over us. They can rule those who still desire to give them their power and authority. But they and their laws have no power over us, or the rest of the universe, or any of those here upon this earth who wish to follow us and our law." Unquote. 45. Imperfect systems of justice and punishment will be overridden. Because the universal rule of law prohibits any person from impeding upon the free will of another, for any reason except to protect free will, any earthly rule of law that does not support free agency in this manner will become obsolete. The prisons will be forced open, and all the prisoners subjected to the inferior laws and their consequences created by imperfect humans will be released from custody. The freed murderers, rapists, thieves, and all others who have committed crimes against the quote-unquote law of the land while in an imperfect world will become subject to the universal rule of law. Once released from custody, outrightly forgiven, and taught real truth, those who were once abased by the very laws that held them captive will rejoice that they are now exalted to the same equal level of humanity as those who put and held them in custody. The power of these advanced beings will permeate throughout the earth and will prohibit any person's free agency of being violated in any way. 46. The acquired knowledge of doctors, scientists, and historians will all become useless. With their knowledge and power, the advanced humans will heal all people of their infirmities, both physical and mental. These advanced beings will reveal what is done and how it is done in perfect human worlds. The learning and knowledge of doctors, psychologists, scientists, and researchers, even all those who have dedicated their lives to understanding the reasons why humans do what they do and why things are the way they are in this world, will become obsolete. There will no longer be the written histories of the past. These often false and misstated historical documents will be replaced with actual advanced video-like footage of any event that occurred at any time on our planet. Instead of going to a library full of now useless books containing erroneous and subjective information, the real truth will be available to all to see with their own eyes. Once seen, A person will then be left to form his or her own perception of any particular event that occurred on the earth. History will be that which each person personally perceives of any event. We will come to understand just how ridiculously useless our mortal system of education is to our humanity and to our true reality. 47. All worldly knowledge will become obsolete. The kings, presidents, government heads, statesmen, judges, lawyers, doctors, scientists, and the educated, even all who quote-unquote think they have some power over others or some special knowledge that is needed by the people of the world, will groan in agony. They will realize that these advanced humans have brought with them understanding and technologies that supersede and negate everything they once thought was of value to the human race. They will soon learn that nothing, absolutely nothing, that was or is produced in an imperfect world holds a candle to what these advanced beings bring to our earth from their perfect worlds. 48. We will have the ability to access the memories of our past. The advanced technology the advanced human beings will bring includes the ability to allow a person to bypass the quote-unquote veil of the imperfect brain and access all of the experiences recorded on one's essence. We will be able to view any and all of our past experiences easier than we can view home movies stored on our current computers with a few simple clicks. With the advanced technology of what could be called, quote, life experience advanced retrospection navigation. Learn, unquote. Our past life experiences will play back in our brain more vividly than any dream we currently have while asleep. We will relive all that we did. We will have the ability, while utilizing the learn technology, to know who we were in the past, and most importantly, how we acted with our free will. Access to learn will increase our understanding of who we are and why we exist, thereby allowing us to become comfortable with our chosen humanity type. 49. Unconditional universal equality will be established. All belief systems will be invalidated with true reality. Those who think they are special and have quote-unquote gifts they value in and of themselves will stand embarrassed and be emotionally punished. The emotional punishment will be twofold. One, by the realization that they deceived themselves, and two, by the looks of disbelief and irreverence they receive from those who once believed in their imaginary special quote-unquote powers and quote-unquote gifts. The people of the earth will begin to understand how equal and fair we were all treated by our creators during the days of our probation upon this earth, and that no one had an unfair advantage in any way over another. We will see each other as equals. We will understand the equal human value between an illiterate derelict found in the dirtiest slums on earth and those who are the most educated persons of wealth, whose mansion walls are decorated with certificates and degrees of useless, imperfect world education. We will then know just how equal we all are, even when compared to advanced human beings. 50. The most powerful humans serve everyone else. The idea that will quote unquote cut the sharpest for the good of the majority and the bad of the minority is the realization that these newly arrived advanced beings are our servants. The first person who attempts to honor them or give them thanks or platitudes will be met with a stern but loving rebuke. Quote, "You were not created to serve us. We are here by our own choice to serve you." Unquote. Those who are convinced that somewhere in human reality there exist those with all the riches who have multitudes of servants and the power and control of the universe will be greatly disappointed to discover that the greatest and most powerful human beings among us act as if they are the least of us all. They are our servants. We are their masters. They do what we want them to do for the sake of our happiness. They do not give us orders. They take our orders. Then shall the poor rejoice. Then shall the meek rule the world. Then shall those who were once exalted above others feel belittled in the presence of those whom they once ruled, controlled, and abased. Those whom they once belittled will be exalted, not over them, but equal to them. The least among all the humans of an imperfect world will rise up and take their place in equality and honor alongside everyone else. There will be no more quote unquote least, as there will be no more quote unquote greatest. 51. Our overseer's eternal partner will impugn all prejudice. When our particular overseer, he who is assigned to our solar system, comes with these other advanced humans in their perfected glory as our servants, he will bring with him an example of one of the greatest ironies of imperfect human judgment and perception. There at his side will be a perfected woman whom the world will come to know as one who was once a mortal prostitute. Yes, the one who became close to and bonded with this advanced human overseer during his pre-mortal life, and was picked by the overseer as his eternal partner, was once a mortal prostitute who roamed the streets in her hometown looking for someone who would pay her for sex. With this one irony, all human judgment will be relegated to the abyss of human misperception and ignorance, which was forced upon us by quote-unquote moral values, established in an imperfect world. Then those who once threw rocks at, arrested, and persecuted any prostitute who lived during their mortal lifetimes will wish that the rocks would fall off the mountaintops and cover them to hide their deep embarrassment. All those who ridiculed another for their lifestyle, their sexual orientation, or the color of their skin will be greatly uncomfortable. Anyone harboring any prejudice or insensitive judgment will feel self-conscious when they see advanced beings of all different skin tones, sexual persuasions, and personalities, all helping to turn this imperfect world into a perfect one like the one they came from. 52. We will judge ourselves. These advanced beings will not judge us. There will be no tribunal set up to try each one of us according to how we treated each other as mortals. The only judgment that will exist is our own personal judgment. Once we have finally been taught the real truth, we will begin to see the foolishness of our ways. The only punishment for anything we have done with our free agency will be the way we will perceive ourselves and what we have done. Those of us who once thought we could be trusted with the power and abilities of our creators will, or should by then, humbly admit that based on our experiences while upon this earth, we should not be trusted with the power that they possess. In their presence, we will have the example of exactly how Solarian servants act with the power they possess. We will then more fully understand the purpose of an imperfect world in allowing us the opportunity to witness what Lunarians and Stellarians do with their free will. What they do is far different from the actions of a Solarian. We will finally be able to accept who we are and will no longer desire to be someone we are not. 53. Universal law will create the perfect world. Our world will be transformed into a perfect human society by advanced beings who will put our earth under the jurisdiction of universal law, the rule of law that exists in all other perfect worlds that are found throughout the universe. All earthly governments will eventually fall. All human-made institutions that have caused us to separate from each other and form groups of intolerance and hate will fall. All prejudices and beliefs that put one person above another will fall. Each individual person will become more precious than anything else in the universe. Each of us will become rulers of our own individual kingdom, with powerful servants to serve our every need. The universe will once again, quote-unquote, revolve around each of us as it did from the moment we were first created in a perfect world. Each of us will see ourselves as the greatest being in the universe, because we are. The only source of unhappiness will come from our inability to accept who we have chosen to be. But once we have had opportunity to live in a world where there are no expectations placed on us of who we should be, we will be able to accept ourselves for who we really are. Once self-actualized, we will be happy with who we are and will be forever content with who we have chosen to be. Summary: living in a perfect world with an imperfect body is a vital step towards our self-actualization. We experienced life in a perfect world with a perfect body, but we had no substantial realization of what quote-unquote perfect actually meant. Living in an imperfect world with an imperfect body gives us the comparative experience that we need to appreciate all there is about being human. We can thereby know what quote-unquote perfect means. Human beings in their most advanced form are perfect. We will always be, as other humans like us have always been, the most perfect life form in the universe. Although it is very hard to be convinced of our perfection based on our experiences in this imperfect world, once we gain the experience of living in a perfect world with an imperfect body, we will finally have no doubt about it. Everything that transpires in our personal universe is to help us gain a better appreciation of our individual human existence. We have about another 135 Earth years to figure out just how perfect we can be and begin to reflect who we truly are in our actions. If we have not done it by then, those who are very much like us, but who have already been convinced of the benefits of human perfection, will return to our solar system, intervene into our lives, and help us come to the same realization that they have. All human beings are equal and are the perfect and ultimate life form in the universe.